Welcome to Hardware Asylum. This episode we're going to be testing and cleaning some floppy drives. Recently I went to visit the REPC in Seattle, Washington to pick up some retro gear for some projects around the lab, and I came back with two 3.5-inch floppy drives. Now, of course, 3.5-inch floppy drives are nothing new, but I wanted to pick up two of them that had black bezels. And being a snob for specs, I wanted to make sure that they were Teac drives. I've always liked Teac floppy drives, and we just want to keep with the theme. Now, if you hear some noise in the background, it's a nice day here in the Hardware Asylum Labs, so I have the door open, so we might hear some diesel trucks, some sirens, you know, basic nature. Now, while I picked up a couple of black bezeled floppy drives, I have a few others that were already in my collection, including a Mitsumi that has a black bezel, a Mitsumi that has a white bezel, and two more Teac drives that have beige bezels, beige or white, whatever you want to call them. And I'm pretty sure that one of these works, a couple of them do not, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through all of them and see what's inside, clean them up, and give them a test. Once we get the 3.5-inch drives cleaned up, we're going to hop into some 5 1/4s. I have this one that I've had for years. This is basically a Teac drive, 5 1/4 with a beige bezel. And since I wanted to do some builds with black bezels, I picked up this drive off of eBay. And this is really the other one that I want to test out because this one's new to me. It's got a black bezel, red light, and supposedly works perfectly. We'll find out. First things first, let's open up the two new drives. Take a look to see what we got. Visual inspections. We do have the Teac drive here. These are HFs, which are the, I don't know what that stands for, but these should be the 1.44. We got a little bit of pin damage here, which all you have to do is just bend them back and all of a sudden it's good to go. This drive, also a Teac. No damage here, and actually it looks a little bit cleaner on the outside. But let's, on the surface, of course, you can just wipe these down and clean them up all you want, but we were on to take a look inside. So to do that, on these drives, you have a screw in the back. I have yet to find a drive that actually has the screw intact, but what that does is holds the top down. Sometimes you can just take a screwdriver and you push that up. Push that up. This pops off. And inside, this one looks really, really clean. It's a little bit of dirt on the head in there, which maybe you can see that. This looks clean. Yeah, this drive has been gone through, so that's a good sign. Set that one aside. Now this one with the bent pin. Pop that open. Oh, okay, so this is actually what I was expecting. We have a whole lot of dirt and dust. And basically when you have floppy drives just sitting in computers and you have a negative pressure situation, the air is going to try to get into your computer any way it can, and in this case it will be the drive face. And this creates a low pressure zone, so basically everything will stick around right there. But luckily, a little bit of air, we can blow this out. Right, we have the remote camera. We're going to take a walk. Air compressor. Alright, now that we've blown out the dust, we'll wipe out the dust from the top a little bit later. We want to get in here and probably take a Q-tip, see if we can get in here and clean these contacts. You want to be careful when you do this because the heads move. Just don't want to put too much force on it to get them to get out of alignment. Now this part's going to be a little tough. There's the wheel that spins the disc. Should be wiped down a little bit. As you can see, it's kind of dirty. This will just keep dirt from getting into your discs. Clean that up pretty good. Now the motor, yeah, see, that's dirty. Oh yeah, that's really dirty. See if we can get this to move. Yeah, look at that dirt. Get some of the dirt off of this. I'm not trying to make it perfect, I'm just trying to clean it up a little bit. Cotton swab's already destroyed. Okay, now we'll go and put a little bit of Tri-Flow on here just to lubricate that slightly, now that I've wiped off a lot of the dirt. And then we can test it out. Where's my little sticky bobber? The way I like to do this, you don't want to put too much lubricant anywhere on these things. So I'll go and take the oil, fill up the hose, and then dab it down. There we go. And that's really all we need to do. Now we can test it out. Now when hooking up floppy drives, there's a red stripe on the cable. That always goes toward the power. Or if there's a key, line up the key. To test our drive, I have a Pentium 2 333 on a tie-in motherboard, SD card hard drive, and basically we're just going to power it up. I might run my cleaning disk through it just to be sure, and then I have a blank disk that will run a scan disk on and make sure everything checks out. Basically booted into Windows 2000. That's what the operating system that I have installed. Okay, standard floppy disk. I'm not sure what's on this. Oh. Okay, let's pull up a directory. It looks like we have a boot disk. Let's format this one. This particular disk is bad, so we're going to format it and hopefully make it good. While we're trying to format this drive, what we're really looking for is to make sure that the head moves all the way across and that it can read the entire disk. Format complete. In addition to the 3.5 that I picked up from RePC, I was looking for a 5 1/4 that had a black bezel, and I found this one on eBay. They claim that it was in good working condition, in which I would agree. I mean, the drive itself is really clean. You look at the heads are also very clean, and overall the drive seems to be in really good shape. Interesting though is that I have this drive. I've had this one for years. It's got a little bit of schmutz on it, sorry about that. But if you look at the top, it is completely different. Now I'm going to make the assumption that this is probably a newer drive. But that doesn't make a lot of sense because over here we have this little additional piece. I'm not sure exactly what that is. And we also have a device on this drive that ejects the disk. It also prevents the latch from coming down. Whereas on this one, you can swing it down without a disk in there. Now if you take a disk, and install it in the drive, it doesn't go in all the way. It kind of springs out, and that's because it's picking up on that. It'll lock into place, then you can lock the drive. When you release it, it ejects. I'm going to say that this is the Teac ejector. The interesting part about it though is that this is the only drive I've been able to find anywhere, online, on forums, anywhere, that has this ejector. Which makes me think, well, if this is a newer drive, then that kind of makes sense. Maybe it's an old drive, I'm not really sure. But if you look at this drive, it doesn't have the cam here to prevent the drive from locking. It has the tabs to hold the ejector, and it even has the hole here to hold the spring. So I'm not sure why this particular drive does not have the ejector. I'm not sure what makes this drive different than this drive. They're both 1.2 meg drives. The only real difference is the color of the bezel. But again, online, that makes absolutely no difference at all. 5 1/4s are different than 3.5s because they have this card edge, and you have to have a special connector on the cable. It only goes in one way. There's actually a locating pin right there. Plugs in like that. Technically, you should hook up the ground, but we're not going to. And it takes a standard Molex power. For this drive, you push the disk in all the way, you lock it down, and now we should be able to pull a directory. I'm going to get you in close. I found out what the thunk is. So that little block appears to remove the head from the disk when it's not being used. Makes it a little bit safer to keep the disk in there because that's one of the things that you always try to avoid. But if I go and try to access it, Watch that silver lever in the back. It thunks down to actually engage the heads, and then when it's done reading, it lifts off. And if you notice again, the light will activate, showing that the drive is active. It's actually a nice little safety feature. So here we have two very different 5 1/4 inch drives, and I'm not sure exactly when the generational gap was between these two, which one's newer, which one's older, but we have basically the same 5 1/4 from Teac motor. Everything's in the same place. The board looks exactly the same. The stamping is exactly the same, but this drive, which is the one that I like the most, has a cam to prevent the latch from going down and an ejector. This other drive has an electronic disconnect that will raise the head up off of the disc to protect it, which is good, especially when you leave your discs in, but it doesn't have the cam or the ejector, which is annoying. Somehow I'd like to combine these two together, but I'm not sure if I should go with this drive or if I should go with this drive, or maybe there's a magical 5 1/4 out there that has everything between these two together. Let me know down in the comments below if you have any questions, and if you know where I might be able to find one of those combo drives. Thanks for watching.